So what's up, people? It's your boy OT and welcome to that. A couple of weeks ago, I told you about one of the craziest nights I had while I was the student physician associate. So I'm up on the 6th floor, pacing up and down, following my triumphant AMU and getting the catheters. It's kind of late. Nobody's going to need a cannula at this hour. The patients are probably sleeping by this time, you know? It is what it is. I hit the buzzer. No response. At that hour, you can really expect it. I was like, probably there is nobody at Dex at this time. I hit it again. One of the nurses was coming out. She came out and I went in. I think it was a nurse. I don't remember who it was, but somebody was coming out. So this person came out and I just slid through like that. From the corridor, you could see the light spilling from the doctor's office. So there was a sliver of hope. So I head to the doctor's office, but then I realized, like, bro, you didn't even wash your hands. At least pattern yourself right, go in there, legit. So I retrace my steps back, wash my hands, and go to the doctor's office. When I get to the doctor's office, there is just really one lone junior doctor. I give them the spiel. You know the response, innit? Nothing. But you know, he did suggest I go to the other side to go check if perhaps I might find better luck over there. So I go to the other side, head to the doctor's office. There was not a single soul in sight. But whilst I was standing there pondering why nobody is here, I see someone from behind. I check her badge and it says FY2. So I give her the spiel. Yada, yada, yada. No. Though she says no, tells me there is a patient that needs some bloods doing. At that point, for me, time slowed down. Looking at the situation I was in at that point, I knew, bro, this was not the time to be grafting. But rule number one of being a physician associate, always graft. And rule number two, never forget rule number one. Though I wasn't really excited about doing this with a puncture, I acquiesced. I said, okay, give it to me. This old man had juicy veins for some odd reason. He was not dehydrated. His skin was legit. I didn't really struggle with that venipuncture. I went in there, got the blood. One thing about medicine is once you start doing venipunctures, you have this crazy obsession with veins. Every vein you see, just think to yourself, how I could just slip a needle in there and get the bloods without any struggle. It's kind of weird, really. I get the bloods and return to the office. I meet Amir, an ST2 I will be meeting in a couple of weeks' time to help me with some suturing summatives. Luck seemed to be on my side. Amir had been asked by one of the nurses to do a cannula she was struggling with. The FY2 tells Amir, yo, this PA has been looking for a cannula. It's like, oh, you've been looking for a cannula, right? It's like, you can have it. So I go into the treatment room and get my stuff, and I'm ready to go for my cannula. See one of the nurses come to the office with a concerned face. In brief, one of the patients, we could call him Mr. X, had spiked the temperature and was not looking too good. So we go to the bay. Mr. X is not looking too good. Mr. X is a bit disorientated, drooling, not really with it, very irritable. Hurry up to the treatment room once again, get my stuff and go back to the bay. In the bay, it's just me and the nurse. Mr. X is not really with it, just swinging his arms all over. I got a couple to my face. He wasn't himself, so it was calm. I didn't have to scrap with Mr. X. Professionalism on a daily, no complaints. The nurse was really helpful. Had she not held Mr. X, I don't think I would have been able to do the venipuncture, get the venipuncture, and head back to the office. In the office, I go back to the FY2 to get the label. But whilst I'm getting the label, I see a couple of these out-of-hours nurses. I remember one in particular. There were 3 of them. I mind my own business and head for the pod. I come back from the pod and I go to the FY2 to get a sign off. One of the black ops nurses, call them black ops because they're only called when the woof hit the fan. I'm sitting with the FY2 trying to socialize. She looked a bit Latina to me, so I was trying to wonder, like, yo, where you from? You give me Latina vibes. It was like, she's from Brazil. I was like, yo. Before I could say anything else, one of these black op nurses asked, have you done bloods for Mr. X? Yeah, I just potted it. Why were no coax done? Now, I don't really remember if it was coax or group and say, but I know one of these two wasn't done. Bro, before I could explain myself, the lecture had already ensued. It's very important that you do coax, blah, 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 A, B, and C. And normally at this point, I would point to my badge and tell them, yo, I'm a student. I think because I was rushing to come to the hospital that night, I didn't take my badge, so I didn't have anything to point to. So I stood there in silence and nodded in agreement. So whilst I was taking this drilling, I could see Amir behind the nurse. I saw him see me. And I saw him. I knew he should be taking this drilling. Because the set of bloods I did them because Amir the XT2 asked me to do it. I only did what he told me to do. So as I was taking the drill, I think one of the nurses came through, one of the black ops nurses came through and did what I had forgotten to do. I think it was a coax. I still don't remember. I had a coax group and say. So when they left, I head back to do the cannula. I had been interrupted by Mr. X's situation and there were a couple more to, I think 3 more. So I was able to do all my formative cannulas. Clearly there was an elephant in the room that needed address. However, considering the situation I was in, that I needed to get my summative signed before noon the next day, there was no time for me to who is right, who is wrong. I thanked the FY2 and headed off. Whilst I was going on the stairs, I met the actual nurse that had helped me with Mr. X's situation, and she was like, don't know what I would have done without you tonight. I just smiled and I kept on moving. In my head, I was like, yo, I know. I'm having sex. After I left, I went straight to the women's and children. But that'll be another story for another time. It's your boy OT, and I'm out. Salute!